Now, this may come as a shock, but I love Degrassi. I've been essentially hooked on it ever since the Degrassi Goes Hollywood movie came out and I happened to see it on TV. And ever since then, I made it my mission to see everything related to Degrassi. From Degrassi Junior High and High, all the way through Teen G, and now through Next Class. The only thing so far I haven't seen is Kids of Degrassi Street, which I'm gonna get to. And the Degrassi Never Look Back movie. And whereas I haven't had time to watch the Kids Degrassi Street series, Never Look Back, I've had a chance to watch it. I actually started watching it and I stopped. I could not get through it at the time. I can't remember what exactly it was, but I had this general feeling like this was not Degrassi. This movie had turned the show that I loved into a teen soap opera, which Degrassi kinda is, but not to the extent the film was. As I keep saying, the point of Degrassi is to show real people in realistic situations and explore the thoughts and feelings of the people in those situations. But Never Look Back, it starts with Tristan giving a vlog opening talking about, oh my god, this summer, oh god. That's how it sounded. This summer, like, changed everything, or some crazy crap happened, you guys won't believe it. Almost like a murder mystery type thing, and that's not Degrassi. I'm not all one to blame a movie for doing something different from the show, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to applaud the film for being everything that the show's not. Degrassi isn't nearly as hyper-dramatic as this, and the plot of it revolves around this sort of famous girl or something going missing, and she's faked her kidnapping and Frankie, and there's a ghost thing that's kind of not a ghost. Yeah, you can tell I didn't finish this, and I don't remember a lot of it. But of all the Degrassi that I'd seen, this is the only one that I stopped watching. It's been about a year, and I've sort of become a little bit of a different person, and I've consumed a lot more Degrassi, and my thoughts on things that I used to hate have changed. For instance, I'm a little more sympathetic to season 13 and 14, though I still really don't like 13. So I'm kind of curious to see if I can get through it, and what my general thoughts are about it. Even though I've kind of come to like season 13 and 14, I think I'm going to cringe a lot in this movie. So I thought it'd be interesting to capture my pre-thoughts before I go in. We'll see how this goes, for better or for worse. So, I think for me the most important takeaway from this whole ordeal was I can't write. I was warned way back in 2nd grade, but I didn't listen. I'm sorry, Miss Kotek. I can't say I regret watching this movie, but I don't think I missed a lot not watching it. One thing that I got really wrong up until this point was it's called Don't Look Back, not Never Look Back or something. I got that from the title of the YouTube version that I was watching, and look how far that got me. One thing I definitely did not get wrong though is Tristan. My god, he was so annoying, and I understand why he was acting the way he was. That was his clickbait video. He was purposely being all, oh my god, dramatic, just to drive clicks and get people to watch his video, but I don't know who'd actually watch something like that. I mean, he over-dramatizes it in a very Tristan way, but it's unbearable to watch. Just about any time he interrupts the film, I just think, go away, Tristan, what are you doing here? You're ruining everything. Oftentimes, he'll kill the tension or whatever emotion or error the film has actually built up. And trust me, the film needs anything it can get, especially in the beginning. My gosh, the beginning. And even though I know why the Tristan interludes are there, sucking on purpose is still sucking. And let's not forget the creepy candy van guy. I don't understand why they went so overboard with hide your kids from this person. I can understand trying to establish him as a possible bad guy even though he's a total red herring, but they might as well have had Logan call out from the opposite side of the street, hey, I'm not the bad guy, that dude is. And it would have been no worse than what they actually went with. And I guess that we can assume that this guy who happens to be the teacher actually for summer school acted weird in some way during class to make Tristan immediately not trust him. But we don't see that. Oftentimes I will defend things happening off screen and then affecting what we do get to see, but I feel this is a very important thing for us to have seen. And really, that leads into my biggest complaint about the first part of the movie. All tell and not show. We're informed of character traits and things that the character wants to do, rather than it being naturally displayed to us through the course of the scenes. It feels like the dialogue in the scenes are just hitting points on a checklist in order to get to where the story wants to go. To be honest, the first half of this film is, and then this happened. the movie. And it's so strangely uncharacteristic for Degrassi to just ignore the characters. That's the whole point of the show! And yet it's more focused on the murder mystery whodunit. Although technically it's not a murder mystery, it's a kidnapping, sort of. Did I mention spoilers? And one of the weirdest parts about the beginning of the film is they don't even get a lot of the characters right. When did Grace start hating Zoe? Zid can be quite the meathead, but why is he and Tiny just ogling Gloria when they're supposed to be doing their lifeguard exam? And probably the most damning of all is, why is Mr. Hollingsworth bringing his family's dirty laundry out into the workplace? For the entire time that we've known this character, he's always wanted to keep things on the hush-hush, especially things that would affect his public image in a negative way. In order to quell the hot mess that was Degrassi Nudes, he wanted Frankie to take the fall for it. Is this the kind of man who would go to his daughter's internship and proclaim, "Who got my daughter drunk?" I mean, for one, a lot of people might think of it as bad parenting because why didn't you control your daughter? And then also, people might still look negatively on Mr. Hollingsworth because he didn't teach his daughter right from wrong. Like, why is she drinking underage anyways? One of the weirdest things about this whole issue is there's semblance of the characters in the dialogue, even though it doesn't feel like it comes from the characters. We can understand why Frankie would want to fit in with her coworkers and why Maya would be desperate for a job with a music producer, but the specific ways in which these feelings are expressed, or not expressed at all actually, more told to us, is really what messes it up. The words don't feel natural. It's again, just like checking boxes off a checklist. I think one of the things that annoy me the most is Gloria acting like she's had this lifelong hate boner for Maya, even though we just met her in this movie. We don't get to learn a lot about her until after she goes missing, and apparently she's actually this really great person, even though she has unexplained rivalries with random girls that she just met this summer. She got the lifeguarding job, and she's also a fairly famous YouTuber. Why does she have to be a babysitter too? And while we're on it, how does she have time to do all three of those things? Especially something like lifeguarding and babysitting. Those are set hours where you've got to be somewhere and you can't do anything else. And as someone who works essentially 2 jobs, it baffles me as to where she can find the free time to do anything fun or do anything to take care of herself and keep herself sane. Actually, maybe that's why she went along with Logan's crazy scheme. I didn't really like Logan, his character, or his acting either. I don't know if it's the actor's fault or the director's or whoever's fault for him just coming off so flat and forced. It seemed like he was more reading his lines rather than actually talking to someone face to face. His emotions weren't really there. The most he could muster was just dull, not really being interested up until the end when he seems at least a little bit frantic over the change of situation, but not very much up until then. I also find it super conspicuous that he's just suddenly friends with Frankie at one point without there really being a natural growth into that position and actually seeming to care about her and her ideas. I mean, to start out, he was with a group of people who just hated Frankie for being the mayor's daughter and not being poor, which I kind of find weird because I would think that the children of the rich and powerful in the city would be in this position too, like the internship would include some more of those people like Frankie, but I guess the movie needed to single her out somehow and make her desperate to be Logan's friend. I'm also very annoyed that they essentially did Claire and Drew all over again. Frankie and Logan are apparently really good as friends, and so they must have feelings for each other. While we know that Logan feels nothing for Frankie, Frankie doesn't even consider that she might actually like him until pointed out, and all of a sudden, yeah, she might actually love him. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those things where Frankie isn't self-aware enough to recognize these feelings in herself before someone else does. In fact, as we could see with season 2, she's not really self-aware anyways. But it's one of those rare moments in Degrassi where I'm like, been there, done that. And as bad as Claire and Drew were, this somehow did it worse. Actually, no, not somehow. I know how. Their friendship wasn't organic. We didn't see them grow together. They just suddenly were Claire and Drew. Before sex, that is. And my gosh, Could they not have made it any more obvious that Logan was scamming Frankie for money? I mean, for one, he's made it very clear to Frankie that he has no money. He comes from no such money. And yet, he expects Frankie to believe that the kidnappers would send a ransom video to Logan asking for an amazing amount of money. Money that Logan definitely would not have, while also demanding that Logan not go to the police? Where else could he get that money? Frankie didn't have any connection to Gloria until after the kidnapping, and any supposed kidnappers wouldn't even know that Frankie was involved. But given how Frankie is, and not necessarily completely in a bad way, I'm not surprised she'd be the one to get scammed. I am surprised, though, that Hunter was in so much of this movie. He actively rejects people like Tristan and Zoe, so why would he be around so much as the drama ensues? I guess he had to be around somehow to give his half of his birthday money to Frankie to give Logan, which actually leads me to agree with Tristan. Who gets $5,000 for their birthday? And yes, I'm poor. As a quick disclaimer, I'm not saying that it's wrong to get $5,000 for your birthday or that it shouldn't happen. And it's not to say that the movie got this wrong or it's a criticism in any way. It's just as someone who grew up poor, I never really considered such a thing. There's actually a lot I really didn't like about this movie, which is a shame because there's a lot I did like. It made sense for Maya to have anxiety about Gloria, to think that something she did might have sent her away, or maybe not sent her away, but gotten her into trouble. And then when she sees Gloria on the street, of course she's gonna try to do anything she can to try to find her, because she saw her once, maybe she could see her again. And as much as I'd like to say that Zig ditching Maya after not spending a lot of time with him over the summer was out of character, it was in character. It was in character for Zig. And while in some areas it was forced, I did like the growth of Zoe and Grace as friends. I can now see where the seeds were planted with Zoe's love for Grace, and it is kinda sweet. And it actually expands my context of how long Grace has been trying to be a girlfriend to Zoe, although not having the actual title of girlfriend. Although, I can't say the same for Winston and Frankie's breakup. I actually think it's way more silly than I imagined. I thought Frankie kissed Logan or something. But no, Winston got mad that Frankie developed feelings for another guy, but didn't yet choose between the two. And actually, she didn't have to. One guy turned out to be a total craphead, but that didn't matter to Winston because, oh, she cheated on him in some way? By what? Seeing potential in another guy to be a boyfriend? I don't know if he's ever, been in the real world, but crushes happen all the time. And it's not like she chose Logan over Winston. And must we remind him that he kissed Lola? Way worse than her developing feelings for another guy. He kissed her best friend and tried to hide it from her. Maybe the actual reason for the breakup is Winston's whining about, oh, why did Frankie not give me $10,000? But I think one of the coolest things about this movie actually is that they used real science. The way that they found where Gloria was being kept is actually real. You could do this yourself. And because I'm not so good at math and physics and all that really interesting but kinda hard to wrap your head around stuff, I brought in an expert.
Hey, so this scene is cool for two reasons. One being that it's a payoff of the scene from science class earlier in the film that I thought was only there to make it feel like it's actually a real class and not just a backdrop. And two, and what I think is perhaps the more interesting of the two, is that it really demonstrates the usefulness of significant figures. You see, when you look at any number like that, you can assume that whatever the actual number it is will be rounded, probably by a lot too, because we're not getting down to the centimeter. From my memory, since we're recording this live and ADRing my voice in afterwards, they have about 3 decimal places for most of their figures, and if that's correct, that means they'd be accurate to approximately a 32-meter area, which is extremely precise for trying to find a warehouse. Lose the next figure and suddenly you go to a range of 1/3 of a kilometer, which is still pretty reasonable to find on a map. Even if the exact figures aren't accurate to real life, doing a little research on my phone right now tells me that the focal length of an iPhone 5 is given to 3 figures by a Google search. The weak spot would be the size on the frame, but they probably still had that figure left over from the group exercise where the equation came from. There's a common misconception that you need a lot of precision to be this accurate, but think about how big a 1,000th of something is. That's about the size of a single pixel on a 1080p screen. Even if the error propagates upwards because of multiplication and how that differs from errors in addition, it's still accurate enough for most things.
I'm having a little trouble, understanding, but it might just be because I just have a terrible grasp of physics.
Well, the physics really aren't important to the... Do you want me to explain the physics? Because I could.
No. I think just having someone who sounds smart explain it will do. Like, just proving a point that, you know, Degrassi isn't just acting like they're smart.
Well, now that you put it in my head, I want to. The equation basically means that if you have the real size of the object and its size on the camera sensor, you can find the scaling proportion and use that to find the distance. It's a lot like trying to find the base of a triangle when you have a smaller one that's the same shape.
And that makes sense. Well, that's why we keep TheVeryMask around, to explain things that don't make sense!
I resent that. It all makes sense if you would pay attention.
Okay, this is my video, get out. It's really hard to say what my overall feelings of the movie are. It started out like such a train wreck in the beginning, but then slowed down and kind of got back on track to a place where I kind of felt it was okay. And hell, I was even okay with Tristan interrupting Zoe and Miles. I thought it was kind of cute that they brought up that Tristan still really wanted Miles back and setting up for the first season of Next Class. I'm also glad to see just how Zoe went from being with Miles or being interested in Miles again to being interested in Grace. And I'm also glad that Miles didn't get upset at Zoe for essentially using him to figure out if she was gay. It was genuinely funny when they joked about it on his boat. Where's that at? I don't know what rich people things are. I started seeing the things that I like about Degrassi in this Degrassi movie. It's definitely not my favorite Degrassi movie, and I think I even rank it below the movie where Spinner and Emma get married. I'm glad to have gotten the context of it, but I'm not going to rewatch it anytime soon. Thank you so much for consuming this video, and thank you very much for Mask for helping out with the making of this video, and thank you to Tarbuck Transom for doing the voice of Mask. And if you found Tarbuck Transom's voice sexy, we have a Let's Play channel so you can listen to him as much as you want. I should work on editing that. And if you want to support my channel, the #1 thing you can do is share this video. The distant second thing you can do is leave a comment. Even though I could take quite a while to respond to some of the comments, I read every one of them. Thank you very much again, and until next time.